The grand chamber of the Galactic Palace smelled faintly of ozone and pomposity. Gleaming spires twisted upward from the capital planet of Voxorine, shimmering like icicles of pure arrogance against the black silk of space. Inside the throne chamber, marble from 5 planets stretched beneath the king's boots, and 17 species of advisors stood in a semicircle, each draped in gold, silk, feathers, or scale-polished regalia. But only one voice mattered today. King Zytherian rose from his hovering throne, thick serpentine lips curling into a cruel mimicry of a smile. "Bring it in," he said. The court doors hissed open. 2 Graxel guards slithered forward, dragging between them a child. Small, dirty, human, maybe 7 years old, wearing a faded shirt with a blue patch on one sleeve. His knees were scraped, one shoe missing, his face splotched with fear, but unflinching. He threw a rock at a patrol cruiser, the Graxel reported, disgust thick in his gurgling tone. Damaged nothing, but he shouted something about freedom. The court burst into polite, planetary laughter. Zytherian stepped closer, his robes trailing plasma thread embroidery. "Tell me, little primitive, why would you challenge my rule?" The boy looked up, not defiant, not trembling, just quiet. "My mama says monsters don't get to stay in charge forever." The chamber fell hushed. Zytherian's smile didn't falter. He turned to his courtiers. "What wisdom? We shall test it." The sentence was delivered without ceremony. Execution at dawn. For incitement of planetary unrest through symbolic aggression. The child was taken away, and the broadcast went live moments later. 52 systems tuned in. It was meant to be a message. And it was. The child's name was Milocane. He had no father. His mother was a quiet woman who had not appeared in galactic records for over a decade. Her image was last seen on a trade delegation 10 years prior. Just another Earth bureaucrat with no distinguishing features. But Leora Kane had once commanded 68 fleets without ever raising her voice. And now she sat in silence. Earth's official statement came 20 hours after the execution. It was brief. Response noted. Action pending. In the Galactic Council, the reply was met with bored snorts and folded appendages. One fish-skinned diplomat chuckled. "They mourn in silence, like prey does." Ambassador Zelveth of the Kalari Collective narrowed her many eyes. "No, they don't mourn. They prepare." Far beneath the Atlantic, a chamber opened, cylindrical, sealed since the era of orbital rebellions. Leora Kane walked through biometric mist and retinal gates, not uttering a word. Technicians in black suits snapped to attention. Every step she took echoed like a heartbeat in a coffin. She passed a hologram display where her son once appeared, age 4, giggling as he chased a synthetic pigeon across the Terran gardens. Her finger hovered over the image for a second. Then she turned it off. "General Kane," said the AI in the room, its tone neutral. She exhaled. "Authorization Echo Foxtrot." "Confirmed." "Initiate." Her eyes didn't blink. "Initiate." Elsewhere, far across the spiral arm of the galaxy, something shifted in the dark. Not a ship, not a fleet, a pattern. Back on Voxorine, Zytherian dined like a god. Candied crustacean from oceanic moons, spiced gellworms sautéed in solar oil, and crushed nebula caviar, all imported, all indulgent. The court watched him gorge with silent envy. "You see," he boasted, juice dribbling down his scaled chin. "Humans are nothing if not sentimental. Their sorrow dulls them. We have crushed one, and the rest will kneel." Somewhere in the room, a janitor mopped quietly. A pale-skinned human in a maintenance suit, eyes downcast, humming. The king didn't notice. One of his advisors, a feathered Trellic elder, spoke softly. "Sire, their retaliation may not come through war. The humans have been known to wait. They outlive grudges. They outlive nothing," the king snapped. "They rot fast. Let them stew in grief." In her quarters aboard Earth's covert orbital observatory, Leora Kane opened a box. Inside, a necklace made of hardened ceramic alloy, once belonging to her son, and a data drive labeled Protocol Widowmaker. She inserted it. The system's AI hesitated. This protocol requires full planetary override. I know. Execution will be irreversible. Her hands shook for the first time. Not from doubt, but from restraint. Do it. A low tremor passed through coded space. Hidden agents embedded in alien networks received synchronized pings. Ancient orbital debris began blinking once every 6 seconds across 10,000 voids. Retired warships, disguised as asteroids, reactivated under new signatures. One even carried a handwritten label on its hull. Not yet. L.C. The galaxy didn't notice. Not yet. But they would. Ambassador Zelveth, back in her observatory dome, received the report first. Ships vanishing. Supply chain silent. Human colonies dark, but not destroyed. Just quiet. Hidden. She turned to her aide, a young winged Silurian. They're not retreating, she murmured. They're aiming. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council held another session. On screen, Earth's newest representative, again Leora Kane. This time, her hair was tied back, her face gaunt but expressionless. I am here, she said, to deliver Earth's final diplomatic reply. Speak, mammal, growled the prime jurist of Kratak Voss. She nodded. You killed a child. For drama. For control. And assumed we would cower. Several snorted. Kane's voice dropped an octave. We do not cower. We calculate. We've been calculating since the Bronze Age. Someone laughed. She smiled faintly. And now that the math is done, the interest is due. One alien leaned forward. Is that a threat? No, her lips barely moved. It's a notification. Across a dozen systems, power grids flickered. Automated orbital stations began transmitting Earth nursery rhymes, soft lullabies over battle frequencies. In high orbit, disguised Terran arrays turned their shields inward. Not for defense, for silence. Galactic monitoring systems began failing, one by one, but without alarm. It felt like static, until one screen showed a map with a single word blinking red. Initiated. In his golden chamber, King Zytherian poured wine into a goblet. He toasted himself in the mirror, admiring his victory. The humans had sent no fleets, no threats, no drama. They had simply gone quiet. He grinned. So predictable. Then his mirror cracked. Not from impact. From sound. A sharp, precise frequency. In the janitor's closet 2 floors down, a mop dissolved into a sleek rifle. The janitor, a human, vanished into the wall, leaving behind only boot prints in wet marble. The Galactic King didn't know yet, but the retaliation had already begun, and humanity never started wars the way others did. They ended them before anyone noticed the war had started. The Galactic Council convened under the mirrored canopy of the Helion Spire, a dome so vast it reflected starlight even at midday. Inside, 17 races were arranged in a slow crescent, each in their custom-built envirothrones, mist chambers for the aquatic, glass shells for the photosynthetic, shadowed stalls for the nocturnals. At the center stood an empty circle of pure obsidian, an honor space, reserved for species with no need to posture. Leora Kane stood in that circle. Her posture was faultless. A crisp navy blue uniform hugged her slender frame, every fold perfectly pressed. Her silver-streaked hair was knotted tight, a calm ripple of discipline beneath the polished light. She held a small wooden box in both hands. No armor, no escort, no entourage, only a smile. Not warm, not cold, measured. The ambassador from the Krathexi sniffed through 6 nasal ridges. You bring a gift, human? Leora gave a single, elegant nod. Yes. Zelveth, the Kalari observer, turned one eye toward her, curious. The Graxel hissed a dry laugh. Earth sends pastries to a funeral. Leora's eyes didn't blink. To yours, perhaps. The chamber went very still. Then came a few polite chuckles. Nervous ones. The box opened with a soft click. Inside sat a dozen round pastries, brown sugared, with steam rising faintly off their crusts. The scent, foreign yet comforting, drifted like a memory through the hall. They're called cinnamon rolls, Leora said. I made them this morning. No one moved. Go on, she murmured. Try one. The Krithexi delegate, a mantis-shaped creature with mirrored chitin, reached forward with delicately armored fingers and broke off a bite. Chewed. Paused. Then nodded slowly. Pleasant. The Graxel declined, recoiling slightly. What's the point of this? Leora's gaze never wavered. Hospitality, forgiveness, and history. The Trellic elder, feathers quivering, leaned in. History. She closed the box again. On Earth, when a neighbor wrongs you, you have two choices. Burn their house down. Or invite them over with a plate of something warm. Let them wonder which you picked. The chamber's air cooled noticeably. You misunderstand your position, snarled a horned envoy from Thas Prime. You're not the injured party here. Your species is at risk of full embargo. I'm aware. And yet, the envoy sneered, you smile. She turned to him, voice silk-wrapped steel. Because I'm not angry. I'm focused. There's a difference. A ripple passed through the seats. Zelveth watched intently, but said nothing. From the back, a bulky aide approached, six-limbed, armored, expression unreadable. Urgent transmission, he whispered to the Trellic elder. From the Polarii sector. One of the data moons has gone missing. The elder frowned. You mean communications failed? No, the aide swallowed hard. It isn't there anymore. The king himself didn't attend the council today. He had dismissed it as beneath him. Let the mammals pout and posture. He was reportedly vacationing on Sarnix 4, enjoying warm sulfuric baths and performing ritual executions for sport. He would not be notified of the cinnamon rolls, but his courtiers would whisper of them for years. Leora bowed with impeccable grace and turned to leave. She had only taken 2 steps when a voice rang out. Wait. It was Zelveth. Leora paused, turned, met the alien's gaze. Zelveth gestured with a slow sweep of her webbed hand. You knew what would happen when your child stood up. Leora's smile didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. He didn't stand up. He didn't have time. He simply refused to kneel. Silence again. Zelveth tilted her head, watching. And now, Leora's voice was gentle. Now I build a world where no child has to die to teach you manners. Then she left. Behind her, half the delegates sat very still. The other half began discreetly checking their planetary defenses. On her transport shuttle, Leora removed her uniform jacket and folded it with care. Underneath, a thin layer of graphite armor hummed softly, invisible unless sought. Her assistant, a young human woman with ink-stained fingers, stood at attention. Was that too much? The assistant asked. No, Leora seated herself and accepted a porcelain cup of tea. It was the right amount. The assistant hesitated. Ma'am, we received confirmation. Phase 1 completed. 24 retired Terran freighters have reached their targets. Any alerts? None. They look like debris. Perfectly inert. Leora nodded, sipping. Good. What about Phase 2? Wait. For what? She set her cup down. For curiosity to turn into fear. On Sarnix 4, King Zatherian was receiving a foot massage from a glowing reptilian empress, when a minor noble burst in unannounced. Sire, the noble gasped, scales flaring. We have reports. Minor power failures, unresponsive outposts, entire systems in blackout. The king didn't look up. Solar flares. But Zatherian waved a jeweled hand. It is statistically impossible for a prey species to destabilize our empire. Humans are ants. Clever ants. But they die beneath boots. The noble opened his mouth again, then hesitated. The king's eyes narrowed. You fear them. I fear you underestimate them. Zatherian laughed, long and loud. Then you haven't seen what fear truly looks like. Aboard Earth's dreadnought Icarus crown, hidden in the tail of a comet, hundreds of soldiers awaited a word that hadn't yet been spoken. Not attack. Not invade. Just her voice. Because Leora Kane didn't shout. She whispered. And armies moved. On a barren moon near the Gralian Rift, an old mining colony lit up after 20 years of silence. A boy's name was etched into the command deck, Milo, scratched by a soldier who had never met him but watched the broadcast with clenched fists. In the council dome, cinnamon scent still lingered. Zelveth walked slowly through the halls afterward, ignoring aides, ignoring warnings, ignoring protocol. She was thinking of Earth silence, not a passive kind. No, it was the silence of a blade being drawn, just beyond the veil of vision. She remembered a line once shared by an old Terran general. Humanity doesn't rage. It remembers. As she passed the atrium, she noticed something strange. A janitor mopping. The same one from the king's palace. He was humming again, softly, tunelessly. She narrowed her eyes. "You clean every planet?" she asked. He smiled politely. "Just the dirty ones, ma'am." She didn't smile back. "What's your name?" He straightened slowly, a bit too smoothly. "Doesn't matter." And then he walked away. Zelveth didn't move. Her 6 hearts thudded slowly, in sync. Later that evening, she sent a private message to her homeworld. "Humans are planting something. We may already be standing on the roots." The reply came back blank. Then static. Then nothing. Somewhere across the galaxy, a sensor array on a trade outpost began to pulse. Not a warning. Not an alert. Just a signal. 3 short. 3 long. 3 short. A smile traced across the data analyst's face before it vanished, along with the outpost. In her quarters, Liara watched a star flicker. "Almost time," she whispered. Then she smiled. Measured. The library moon of Viral, 9, was known for silence, a silence deeper than vacuum. It was not the silence of absence, but of reverence. Aisles of ancient data plates, tactile archives bound in organic silk. Texts in dead languages hummed softly under crystal lamplight. And yet, in the 27th chamber of that quiet sphere, Ambassador Zelveth of the Kalari Collective could hear her own heart's beating too loud. She pressed one splayed hand to a glowing script, scanning yet another human military account, Operation Black Orchard. No known survivors. 3-day conflict. Ended before it was confirmed. There were no boasts in the reports. Just surgical entries. Cold efficiency. Wars concluded in days, sometimes hours, without ever being declared. The more she read, the more she felt like she was standing beside a sleeping beast that had never truly opened its eyes. She whispered almost prayerfully, "Why do you smile while waiting for war?" The lights flickered. A low vibration passed through the floor, like the exhale of something waking beneath stone. At that same moment, deep in the artificial oceans of the Graxel nesting world, Warlord Primed Sculler slammed a steel claw onto his hollow table. "Useless data," he snarled, mandibles clattering. "Our satellites show nothing. No ships, no fleet formation, no troop movements." The Graxel strategist across the table hesitated. "They are missing." Sculler narrowed his lidless eyes. "Missing. Sir, 24 Earth cargo freighters disappeared from registered flight paths 2 cycles ago. No wreckage. No distress calls. Then they were destroyed." "Unlikely." The strategist swallowed. "We're finding trails. Ghost pings. Pockets of encrypted signals that mimic ancient Terran jazz frequencies." The room fell dead silent. No one's used analog frequency loops since. "Since humans did," the strategist whispered. Sculler's claws tapped the table slowly. "Tell me we're not still underestimating them." The silence that followed answered for him. Across the star lanes, other races noticed too. Power surges in supposedly decommissioned relay stations. Old Earth satellites, centuries retired, began blinking in perfect Morse cadence. A minor asteroid belt in Sector 9 shifted and was discovered to be a floating minefield. 78 asteroids. All hollow, all humming with dormant AI cores. Every single one bore the same inscription, buried beneath solar shielding. "This is not a trap. This is a mirror." And mirrors, as one insectoid philosopher once said, don't lie. They just wait for you to look. The message reached Leora Kane's desk without flourish. She was seated at her desk in a cabin aboard Icarus Crown, now parked in the Lagrange shadow of a collapsing star. A cup of tea rested at her elbow, untouched. Her fingers hovered over a screen displaying 7 colored orbs. Each one represented a silent Terran system, not abandoned, prepared. Her aide entered quietly. Another 12 planets confirmed dark, ma'am. No panic. No public records at all. It's as if those colonies never existed. Perfect. Leora leaned back, eyes drifting to the shadows beyond the reinforced glass. The star beyond pulsed like a slowed heartbeat. Ma'am, if I may, her aide ventured, voice soft. Do you ever feel it? Feel what? That we've become them. Leora didn't turn. No. They punish to prove something. We punish so it's never needed again. Is that what Milo would have wanted? She finally turned, and her voice dropped like a knife slipping into water. Milo was a child. He wanted peace. But I was not made to dream like children. She stood. I was made to end nightmares. Elsewhere in the galaxy, at the Galactic Council's Central Intelligence Division, an enormous structure shaped like an open eye, alarms failed to activate. Not because there was no danger, but because the system simply wouldn't accept what it saw. Outposts were going dark. Not destroyed, scrubbed. Metadata erased. Trade histories deleted. As though Earth had pulled back not just its people, but its fingerprints. The Director of Systems, a data being known as VOR-37, floated above the war map in silent horror. They've unhooked themselves from the grid, it whispered to itself. They've turned off their lights in a room full of wolves. Then the lights blinked in the council building. Not a power failure. A warning. In the far reaches of space, beyond the edge of official star charts, a small Terran science station sent out its last transmission. Not a cry for help. A lullaby. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. And then nothing. Zelveth received the report mid-flight, her ship weaving through the trade arteries near Tau Mirith. Her navigator read it aloud with trembling mandibles. They're not attacking, Zelveth said aloud. They're unmooring. Her crew stared at her. They're letting go of every anchor that made them predictable. Every station, every link. They're not retreating. They're becoming untraceable. She rose to her full height. Get me to the council. The pilot hesitated. Ma'am, security. Move. By the time her ship reached orbit, 3 more colonies had gone dark. One had been a cultural museum. It now displayed a single human painting. A woman cradling a dead child, painted in ash and blood. No explanation. No claim. Just presence. In the private royal bathhouse of Sarnix IV, King Zytherian was just exiting his sulfur soak when his newest attendant, an exotic, 4-eyed Thalaxi girl, handed him a datapad. Another Terran colony silent. He grunted. Annoying. And another 7 species have pulled from joint patrol. Cowards. Sir, one of the moons of Orbis drifted into nova radiation without warning. No flares. No impact. Just melted. That finally gave him pause. Earth. They claimed no responsibility. They simply said it was time. He chuckled, then laughed outright. They've grown poetic now. But his laugh echoed strangely. There was no music in it. Back aboard Icarus Crown, Leora Kane stood before a map of the galaxy. One by one, red lights winked out. Her voice remained calm. When you remove your presence from a room, others ask why. But when you remove your shadow, she let the thought hang. Her aide asked, and when do we strike? We don't. But we allow the storm to build in their minds. We let them wonder where it lands. Which of them we want first. The aide looked unconvinced. Leora stepped closer to the star map. Fear is more effective than war. Let them try to sleep. The aide nodded slowly. And when they wake up? Leora smiled. We'll already be in the room. In the Galactic Council, panic set in. Emergency meetings convened. Alliances scrambled. Peace envoys drafted desperate communiques. One message from the Kratak Va stated, "We apologize for the king's decision regarding the child. Perhaps we misunderstood human grief." Earth's reply arrived within minutes. 2 words. So did he. Then came the final shift. On Vox Orion, the palace gardens once serene, filled with floating lanterns, suddenly erupted with electronic birdsong. The same tune again. You are my sunshine. Guards rushed to isolate the source. They found it hidden in the marble veins, burned into the wiring, playing on a loop. But the security feed, later reviewed, showed something worse. The janitor was back. Only now he wasn't mopping. He was whistling. And he was smiling. The stars above Voxorine were dimmer that night. Not by cosmic accident, but because something vast and deliberate had arrived, unseen and unspoken. No alarms blared. No defense shields rose. It was a silence so complete it swallowed even instinct. And yet, something in the bones of the planet quivered, as if the stone itself had learned to fear. Within the throne's citadel, King Zytherian stood on his balcony wrapped in an imperial robe woven from the filaments of solar spiders. He sipped a drink that had cost 7 planetary economies to import. His fingers trembled slightly. No one noticed, he ensured that. No monarch would show unease in his own sky, especially not to his personal council. Still, the silence in the air, it gnawed at him. The wind was too clean. The moonlight too still. "Have our sensors stabilized?" he asked without turning. A Graxel tech officer bowed low. "They have, Your Excellency. But our outer patrols failed to report in. Again." "Failures," he muttered. "They crumble like dry bread." He waved the officer off and gazed into the dark. There were no ships in the sky. No streaks of plasma trail. And yet the stars were wrong. Not absent. Just waiting. In her command chamber aboard Icarus Crown, Leora Kane stood at the edge of finality. Around her, holographic displays spun with silent intensity. Fleet positions, gravitational maps, infiltrated signal loops. All threads in a vast web of vengeance. But she stared past them, past the lights and numbers and war-ready interfaces, into the stillness she had created. Her reflection blinked back at her. Calm, sharp, almost beautiful in its precision. A mirror that didn't warn. Her aide approached, eyes wide. "The signal's been sent." Every node answered. Every ship's in position. Leora nodded. "Status of Voxorine? 17 decoy scans received. They're chasing ghosts across 4 sectors. And our man on the ground?" The aide hesitated. "He's already moving." "Then so are we." Without raising her voice, without lifting a single hand, Leora Kane gave the order that would shift the axis of galactic power. Phase 4. Commence. On Voxorine, in the palace kitchen corridor, no one bothered to patrol. The janitor walked with a bucket and mop. But neither held water. The bucket contained an AI core that had once managed an entire Earth city. The mop's handle was a collapsible weapon. Not a gun, not a blade. Something older. Simpler. Human. He entered the sub-reactor room like he belonged. No one noticed him. That was the brilliance of Earth's design. Not invisibility, but irrelevance. No alarm for a man that didn't matter. He placed the AI core onto the central node, tapped 3 times on its casing, and whispered for the boy. The lights flickered. Across the sky, the stars vanished in perfect sequence. Not clouds. Not shadow. Ships. Thousands. They didn't arrive in formation. They had been here, embedded in comet tails, parked on the far side of moons, cloaked within stellar noise. For years. The moment had never been about arrival. It had always been about unveiling. King Zytherian's goblet fell from his hand and shattered against the balcony floor. Every screen in the citadel blinked, then synced. One image filled them all. A child, Milo, standing quietly in the center of the council room. Not in life, but as he had been, knees scraped, shirt torn, one shoe missing. His eyes staring straight into the cameras, as if he had known they'd record. Then the image shifted. Leora Kane appeared. Not in uniform. In black. She didn't speak immediately. She let the silence ring. And then, with the calm of a mother who had already buried her grief, she said, "You killed him because you thought a child's death would scare the species that raised him. You didn't understand then. You will now." Across the planet, orbital defense systems failed. Not from hacking. From design. Humans had helped build them. Decades ago. They had waited quietly for this moment. Palace guards rushed to secure the citadel. Doors sealed. Shields raised. Cannons warmed. And yet, not one shot was fired. Because the weapons refused. Earth hadn't hacked their systems. They had raised them. Zytherian screamed. "Where are my generals? Where is our fleet?" No one answered. Many had already fled. Others were dead. A few had surrendered the moment the human ships uncloaked, their own people cheering the change. Leora watched from orbit, her face still. Begin broadcast. Every planet that had witnessed the child's execution now saw this. Earth did not send fire. They sent presence. One by one, leaders of allied empires received personal messages. To the Krithexi, this is not about revenge. It's about recognition. To the Graxel, this is what happens when you confuse silence for submission. To the Kalari, thank you for listening. Stay out of the blast zone. But to the king, nothing was said. Until she landed. She walked alone through the shattered gates of the palace. Unarmed, untouched. Every sensor failed to detect her. Not from stealth, but because she no longer registered as a variable in their system. The AI had rewritten the palace's reality around her. Zytherian met her in the throne room, claws shaking around the armrest. "You dare." She held up a small photo. Her son. He went silent. "You didn't just kill a child," she said, stepping forward. "You announced to the galaxy that such deaths could go unanswered." He drew a blade from his side. Ancient. Ceremonial. Heavy. She didn't flinch. "You come here alone," he spat. "You think your mind games, your disappearances, your silent warfare frighten me?" She didn't reply. Only walked to the base of the throne. Her hand hovered near a control panel embedded in the floor. One press, and every remaining backup AI core buried beneath the city would rewrite the DNA signatures of their planetary command. "You'll destroy everything." "No," she whispered. "I'll remind them." He lunged. Too slow. The room dimmed. The systems obeyed her fingerprint. And the throne melted. Zytherian collapsed in a heap of gold and blood. Not dead. Not yet. He gasped, reaching toward her boot. "Why?" he croaked. "Why not just kill me?" She crouched beside him, voice softer than air. "Because death is mercy. And you gave none." She turned. Behind her, Terran Marines entered in black armor, silent as nightfall. They passed her without words. The palace was no longer alien. It was annexed by principle, not war. She didn't watch them carry him away. She didn't need to. The message had been sent. To all. To everyone. You do not kill a child of Earth. Not unless you want to learn what they make their mothers from. Back aboard Icarus Crown, Leora Kane poured herself tea for the first time in weeks. She took a sip. "Transmission received," her aide said quietly. "Every empire has gone into emergency negotiations. Some offered reparations." Leora nodded once. "Catalog them." "Shall I draft peace terms?" "No," she said, setting her cup down. "Then what?" "Let them write them," she said. "Let them try to guess what we want. Let them wonder." The aide hesitated. "And what do we want?" Leora Kane looked out the window. The stars gleamed brighter now, their patterns cleaner, no longer dimmed by arrogance. "Memory," she said. Then she closed her eyes. And for the first time since her son had died, she slept.